Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices is made possible in part by Allstate and the Searle Funds at the Chicago Community Trust.
Good evening, Happy New Year, and welcome to Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices. I'm Phil Ponce. Thank you for sharing part of your weekend with us. This evening, a look back at some of the stories from the past year. On the show tonight, the sweeping infrastructure law is sending billions of dollars to Illinois for upgrades in road, transit, and water service. Are businesses ready to handle the work? America's Latinos have money to spend, but companies don't always know just how to connect with them. We break it down with local marketers. An organization aimed at helping refugee women start a new life. Find out how.
Taking that one step can lead to so much change within your life.
And a teen activist in Hinsdale gives us the last word on the emotion she says prevents many people from standing up for their communities. First off tonight, a recent conversation about infrastructure and how Latino-owned firms could benefit from legislation passed in Washington. Here is WBEZ's Araceli Gomez Aldana.
Local engineering and construction firms are gearing up for big business. That's after President Joe Biden signed the $1 trillion infrastructure bill into law this week. The plan will send billions to state and local governments across the country for long-needed upgrades, including $110 billion for roads and bridges, $66 billion for railroads, $39 billion for public transit, and $55 billion for improvements to water service infrastructure. $17 billion of those dollars are headed to Illinois, adding to the $45 billion the state is already spending on infrastructure. Joining us now with more are Dana Toscano-Harder, president of the consulting firm INDEP Chicago, Lourdes Gonzalez, Senior Vice President with the professional service firm Primera Engineers, and Jaime De Paulo, President and CEO of the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Jaime, I'd like to start with you. Are Illinois construction and engineering firms, in particular Latino-owned firms, ready to take on all of these projects?
Well, Asaf, thank you so much for having us in this incredible panel, especially this incredible two women panelists. It's always a pleasure serving the community. Yes and no. That's a yes and no question. It just depends on where the company is at. And I hope, I hope they're all ready, and I want to hope, and I pray that everybody's ready to access those dollars, because the money is coming soon. And the development is going to happen sooner. So I just hope everybody reaches out, organizations like ours that has the infrastructure and the programs to make sure the particular companies are properly certified and properly bonded. So that's the key. So if you have a construction firm, if you want access to this particular dollars, you need to start thinking on certification, MBE, or bonding.
Yeah, and like you said, this money's coming soon. Dana, these projects will also mean thousands of jobs in the trades. Are there enough workers to fill all of the roles? We keep hearing about shortages.
That's a complicated question. I do think that there are enough workers available, but I think there needs to be some drastic improvements in means of access to those workers. In my professional experience working for contractors and with contractors over the last 25 years, if a contractor's calling and they need workforce on a Tuesday, they need them Wednesday morning. So there's a lot of planning that goes on, and sometimes workforce gets lost in the mix. So we need to find ways to connect the contractors who need the personnel to ensure that they have, basic things like PPE, transportation, things of that nature. And the onus isn't just on, the workforce development type agencies, but also on the large firms to make an investment in the community, in the workforce, and to do some good outreach and make those things available to people who are looking to work on these opportunities.
Can you give us any examples? Or there's something that you see that they just need to make sure that they provide to make sure that they get the workers?
Sure. I mean, in my experience, I've worked in a lot of different programs where, diverse and disenfranchised individuals have qualified for programs to work in a labor capacity. And people aren't often comfortable saying, I can't afford work boots. I don't have a ride to the job site. I don't understand how to read plans and specifications. And there's the immediate concerns. It's being so overwhelmed when they get on the job site. And I think making those basic needs available to people, just very simply, maybe some of the larger firms, this might seem very rudimentary or I'm, oversimplifying obviously, but buy some buses and make an opportunity available to get those people to the work, to the work sites. And I know that there's major developments and all kinds of things that are in play to help remedy this issue of accessibility, but we need to put workers on the ground now, and we need to help them. And also, just understanding the long-term opportunity. A lot of people aren't comfortable leaving, maybe a lower paying job where they know they're going to get those 40 hours a week, to leave it to make $45 an hour for 3 months because they don't see the long-term opportunity. That's not their situation. That's not their conditioning. So
that's
support.
True. That's
support
true.
to understand that.
All good points. And Lourdes, I want to bring you in because, of course, we just heard workers, but it's also going to take not just tradespeople, but civil engineers to get some of these projects done. I'm wondering, what does the pipeline look like for Latino engineers at this moment?
Well, having qualified engineers is always a challenge, and the challenge is becoming more difficult every day. That's why we have started and have for many years started in the middle school level to get kids, Latino kids in particular, involved and learning about STEM careers and seeing role models that look like them so that they can understand that that is a path for them, that they can be an engineer, that there are other people that look like them that have these great jobs. And we have to continue to do that with Latinos in particular, because they're still a very small percentage of the overall engineering and architecture profession. And we need to change that.
Yeah, so planting the seed pretty early on. Yeah. Jaime, are there, I was going to go to you. Are there any barriers for Latino-owned businesses to get some of these projects? You mentioned it earlier. You want people to reach out.
Yeah, well, of course, there's a bunch of barriers for minority-owned companies to access those contracts, but the key here is to work with the right agency is going to help you and allow you to have everything ready from the opportunity comes. And like my friend Lourdes was talking about opportunities in school, yes, we are about to sign an MOU with the University of Chicago in Illinois to allow those engineering schools to become, and companies like Primera and many others, to become mentors of those particular students. And that's how we're going to create a pathway for jobs for this particular young and Latino engineers to get access to those jobs. So that's the key.
Yeah, Dana, back to you. What advice do you have for small contractors who want to get in some of these contracts?
I would say do some homework on what agencies you feel comfortable working for. Also, to spend this time to ensure that your internal infrastructure has the appropriate processes and procedures in place to be able to sustain, working on some of these, the infrastructure type contracts. If you're going to be transitioning into government contracting as a result of this infrastructure bill, or just widening or scaling your presence, if you don't have the right procedures in place, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to be profitable. Your risk is compromised. So I think, and also too, as I'm saying, to get to know the agencies, learn how to read the plans and the specifications well, because it doesn't really matter if you're the prime contractor, the prime consulting firm, or a third tier, subcontractor. Everybody has access to the same information. So understand how to read those contracts, understand the subcontracts you're signing. And it doesn't have to be every paragraph or every word, but and also to be able to find what info you need to even understand do I know what I'm getting myself into, and is my company capable of performing?
Great. Well, thank you. And that's all the time we have today. But our thanks to Dana Toscano-Harder and Lourdes Gonzalez and Jaime DePaulo for joining us.
Thank you.
Back with more Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, right after this.
The Latino community has been a growing consumer market in this country for years, but marketers haven't always known the best way to reach it. Univision's Alex Hernandez recently explored the issue, and here's a look.
In 1993, the Got Milk campaign by the California Milk Processors Board was tremendously popular among English-speaking audiences. By a literal translation of the famous tagline into Spanish, nearly resulted in commercials asking their Spanish-speaking viewers if they were lactating. That's just one example of how American companies have fumbled when trying to reach Latino consumers, and it can be an expensive mistake. Latinos make up 19% of the country's population, and half of them are under the age of 29. And while America's Latinos spend an estimated $1.7 trillion annually, the Hispanic Marketing Council says only 6% of overall industry investment is spent targeting the Latino community. Joining us now with more are Ossie Godinez, CEO and co-founder of the marketing agency Paco Collective, and Cesar Campa, CEO and creative director at Campa Design. Thank you both for joining us today. And I want to start with you, Ossie Godinez. Why do you think it's important for brands to customize their approach to the Latino market? Is there even such a thing as a Latino market?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think that the first thing, and first of all, thank you for having me here today. I think the thing is that to understand a couple points, right? Latinos aren't a monolith, right? In answering the question that you just asked, Latinos come from all over Latin America. Yes, we do like soccer, but some don't like soccer, right? Some speak Spanish, some speak Spanglish, and others prefer all English, right? So there is absolutely a Hispanic market. The thing that's interesting and that marketers need to really do is the due diligence to understand who they're speaking to and really do it in a way that's authentic and genuine, that doesn't speak to stereotypes, that leverages the language in a way that's truly meant to resonate with that particular target.
Right. Cesar Campa, does it have to do more with how much the Hispanic Latinos can spend on why companies decide how much to spend on the Latino market?
I think, it has to do with spending. It has, like Ozzy was mentioning, it has to do a lot with understanding the market and how that money is spent and how it's applied. Because, like you said earlier, it can be a very expensive mistake if you don't do your diligence homework.
What I'm saying with you, Cesar, what are some mistakes you've seen in marketing approaches to Latinos?
Well, there have been some mistakes where there have been stereotypical, you could say, visual imagery that people think, the general market may think that that's what represents us. And in fact, we really just want to be understood. We want the brands or the services to be inclusive and to also have an emotional connection to the community. Therefore, you have an interactive communication and relationship.
After all, we drive the same cars and we drink the same soda, right? Ossie Godinez, what are the differences between generations of Latinos? What are younger generations looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. We spend a lot of time talking to some of the brands that we work with, and just as you would have in the general market, you have your Gen Z cohort, your millennial, and then your boomer, so to speak, and then Gen X in between there. But as you look at the younger generation, we are entering a super area of transparency. Transparency is one of the things that we've talked to a lot with clients and understanding what that means, especially for this younger, very multicultural cohort. And Latinos are leading the conversation in a lot of respects. So a lot of it is around transparency. The environment is incredibly topical right now. And then just the identity and embracing all things Latino, right? This particular demographic, the younger demographic, is really living in this idea, and we call them 200%ers. I didn't come up with that, but I love the term. You're 100% Latino, you're 100% American, and those two things sort of bridge in and out depending on context and where you are. And so that whole generation is also super upwardly mobile, meaning it's all things digital, everything that has to do with your telephone. So it's a very interesting, very dynamic, very fluid segment of the population.
Let's talk about language. Cesar, how important is language in creating campaigns to appeal to Latinos?
Well, it's very important because like we had mentioned before, there are different segments, there are different generations, and you can have a different segment of that same Latino market that doesn't precisely speak 100% Spanish at the house, but they do consume and they do behave and go about their life in a Latino fashion. So now when you have language that is miscommunicated, that can be a pitfall. A lot of, at the beginning, I would say some years ago, there were many campaigns where they were literally translating their commercials or billboards, and it was just missing the boat. But now I think things have gotten better. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, it's about understanding the community, right? And I want to end with you, Aussie. Do you think marketers are doing a better job reaching Latino audiences in recent years?
I mean, Alex, it's gotten better for sure. There's a lot of room.
We have just
grow.
30 seconds, Aussie. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of room to grow. Yes, they've gotten a lot better. I think you're seeing a lot more interest. They're certainly seeing the economic value that Latinos bring to the table. So we're certainly seeing an upward trajectory towards, more active Hispanic marketing in a genuine way, for sure.
It's definitely going to be interesting seeing how they market the Latinos in the coming 10 years, per se, right? So thank you, both of you, for joining us today, Osi Godinez and Cesar Campa.
Gracias,
Thank you.
Alex.
Gracias.
We're back with more Chicago Tonight Latino Voices right after this.
Don't miss one of our stories. Get them all delivered to your desktop or mobile device with a subscription to the WTTW News Daily Briefing. Go to WTTW.com/daily briefing and sign up.
Every year, thousands of refugees seek asylum in the United States. An organization in DuPage County is helping refugee women get back on their feet by teaching them how to become designers. Our Joanna Hernandez recently visited Glen Ellen to learn more about the organization's mission.
Josefina Rengifo never imagined she would have to say goodbye to her life in Venezuela.
I needed to learn a new life, and I am no younger. It was hard. I didn't know the language. When the people need to go to live other country, the people don't want that, but the people need that.
Rengifo says she was forced to leave her country 4 years ago, having to part ways with her businesses and head to Illinois to live with her daughters.
When I came here, I saw that my life was ugly. What happened? Why me? But here I listen other history and say, wow, Josefina, be quiet. The life for other people has been more difficult.
She's talking about Renew, a place she met other women with similar stories. It's a faith-based nonprofit organization that serves refugee women in DuPage County.
Our mission is to create a safe space for refugee women to thrive, and we do that by offering sewing classes and English classes in hopes that it will lead to a job either with us or somewhere else.
Rengifo was eager to learn English and was encouraged to learn sewing and became an artisan.
The more important is that you learn that you can do it. Renew, take care that the people here, they pay attention what is your feeling, what happened with your family. That is give dignity.
The organization began as a sewing group and slowly grew into an organization in 2009. Renew's executive director, Christy Zebonkak, says more than 100 women have participated in the program and have worked for the shop.
We find that sewing and creating is definitely a healing process for the artisans, especially when they did not know they could sew. And they come here and they are feeling alone and they're feeling defeated, and then all of a sudden they have a friend and they have a machine and they can start to create again.
I come here, not talking, speak English now a little bit.
Farida Gasanova has worked for Renew for the last 8 years. She was a kindergarten teacher when she fled the country of Georgia at 47 years old. Now she is a designer making all kinds of things from earrings and handbags.
Every time pray, please, God help me, too much customer come. Yeah, I happy. Every time come, first time pray, my machine.
All the products they sell at the store in Glen Ellen are made from upcycled material, donated from furniture stores in the community.
A lot of our products are a little bit more expensive than what you would expect, but that's because we pay a fair wage and all their wages go directly into the cost of the product.
Even though their journeys haven't been easy, Rengifo says the organization has helped her start over.
To be very grateful because here in Renew I have a new family and I am living with my daughter here. Every day I say, thank you to this country that gives us the new opportunity.
For Chicago Tonight, I'm Joanna Hernandez.
And you can visit our website to learn more about the Renewal Project. At 17 years old, Hinsdale Central High School senior Alexandra Collins is already an accomplished environmental activist. In 2018, she founded a nonprofit group fighting to ban the emission of the carcinogenic gas ethylene oxide near schools and homes. Her activism helped prompt the closure of a medical instrument sterilization company that had emitted ethylene oxide into her community's air for 30 years. In November, she gave us the last word on the emotion she says stops many people from creating change in their communities, and how you can stop it from stopping you.
My name is Alexandra Collins. I am a high school student from Illinois, and I'm also a very proud Latina. I'm also the co-founder and director of Students Against Ethylene Oxide, SATO for short. Students Against Ethylene Oxide is the only completely student-run, not-for-profit fighting against cancer-causing ethylene oxide emissions near schools. My environmental activist work has taught me one very important lesson. I learned that in order to take action, we must not be embarrassed. I came to this realization a few years ago while I was attending an EPA forum. I remember going up to the microphone and asking one of the government doctors what measures students should be taking in order to avoid getting cancer caused by ethylene oxide. And her response will forever be ingrained in my head. She told me that students shouldn't smoke in order to avoid getting cancer. Her response was not only flippant, but it completely stereotyped teenagers, making it seem that we couldn't become activists, we couldn't become people who fought to protect our health. And I was frankly embarrassed. Honestly, being a Latina and a teenager, I didn't look like most people in that room. I was embarrassed because I felt like my question wasn't valid. But upon further reflection, I realized there was no reason for me to be embarrassed. My own health was being impacted because of ethylene oxide. And so I had every right to take my own health within my own hands. And so I committed myself to not being embarrassed. And that changed my life so much. Because I was not embarrassed, I was able to explore new things. I was able to explore this idea of activism. Now, I encourage all of you to dedicate yourselves to not being embarrassed. reflect on times in which you find embarrassment creeping in. We need to make sure that because we live together in this world, we fight together in this world. We should support each other. Don't be embarrassed, because taking that one step can lead to so much change within your life.
And you can find out more about Alexandra Collins' work on our website. And that is our show for this weekend. Be sure to check out our website, WTTW.com/news for the latest, for the very latest, that is, from WTTW News. And if you're watching us on Saturday night, know that you can also catch Latino Voices and Black Voices on Sundays beginning at 10 p.m. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, I'm Phil Ponce. Thank you for sharing part of your weekend with us. Stay healthy, stay safe, and buenas noches.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm pleased to give back to the community through numerous charitable initiatives.